Ambassador Chen Wei adjusted his diplomatic uniform one final time before stepping into the grand throne room of the Zephyrian Palace. The crystalline walls sparkled with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to pulse with the alien monarch's heartbeat. After 3 years of delicate negotiations, humanity had finally secured an audience with Emperor Vextar, ruler of the most powerful civilization in the Andromeda Spiral. The Emperor himself was an imposing figure, standing nearly 12 feet tall with chitinous armor plating that shifted from deep purple to silver as he moved. His 4 arms gestured gracefully as he spoke, in the melodic tones that his species used for formal occasions. Behind him, arrayed in a semicircle, stood his advisors and family members, their jeweled exoskeletons catching the ambient light. Chen had come here with a simple mission: establish trade relations between Earth and the Zephyrian Empire. Humanity desperately needed access to their advanced medical technologies and energy sources. What he hadn't expected was the personal nature of the Emperor's counter-proposal. "Your species intrigues me, Ambassador," Emperor Vextar rumbled, his translator device rendering his words into perfect Mandarin. "Your people show remarkable resilience and adaptability. In the 500 cycles since we first detected your radio signals, you have progressed further than most civilizations achieve in 2,000 cycles." Chen bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty honors us with your observation. We are eager to learn from your ancient wisdom and perhaps offer our own unique perspectives in return." The Emperor's mandibles clicked in what Chen had learned was amusement. "Indeed. Your scientists have already surprised our researchers with several innovative solutions to problems we had considered unsolvable. This brings me to a proposal that goes beyond simple trade agreements." The throne room fell silent, except for the gentle humming of the palace's living architecture. Chen felt the weight of dozens of alien gazes upon him as the Emperor continued. "I have a daughter, Princess Lyradin. She is my youngest child, brilliant in scientific pursuits, and beloved by our people. However, she suffers from a condition that our greatest healers have been unable to cure." The Emperor's voice carried a note of deep sadness. "She cannot bear children." Chen's diplomatic training kicked in, keeping his expression neutral despite his confusion about where this conversation was heading. "Your Majesty, I am sorry to hear of the princess's condition. Human medical science is far behind yours, but if there is any way we might assist, there is." The Emperor leaned forward on his throne, his multiple eyes fixed on Chen with startling intensity. "Our genetic compatibility studies suggest that while Zephyrian males cannot successfully reproduce with your females, human males might be able to father children with Zephyrian females. The biological mechanisms are complex, but our scientists believe it is possible." The implications hit Chen like a plasma bolt. The Emperor wasn't just discussing trade relations, he was proposing an interspecies marriage alliance, the first of its kind in recorded galactic history. "Your Majesty," Chen said carefully, "such an arrangement would require extensive discussion between our governments. The cultural, legal, and biological implications are enormous." "Of course. But understand, Ambassador, this is not merely a political alliance I propose. My daughter has studied your species extensively. She has learned your languages, immersed herself in your cultures, and has specifically requested to be part of any diplomatic mission to Earth. She is curious about humanity in ways that go beyond scientific interest." From behind the Emperor, a figure stepped forward. Princess Lyradin was smaller than her father, but no less elegant. Her exoskeleton was a deep blue-green with intricate silver patterns that seemed to shift like flowing water. Most striking were her eyes, larger and more expressive than typical Zephyrians, with an almost human-like quality that made Chen feel as though she was looking directly into his soul. "Ambassador Chen," she said, speaking in flawless English with only the slightest musical accent, I hope you will forgive my father's directness. In our culture, matters of succession and legacy are discussed openly. I have volunteered for this arrangement because I believe our species could learn much from each other." Chen found himself momentarily speechless. The princess carried herself with quiet dignity, but there was something vulnerable in her posture that suggested the weight she carried as the infertile daughter of an emperor. "Princess, this is far beyond my authority to negotiate. Such a decision would require approval from the highest levels of Earth's government, extensive medical evaluations, cultural exchange programs." Chen trailed off, realizing he was babbling. "Naturally," the emperor interjected, "we propose a formal courtship period. Princess Lyradin would travel to Earth as a cultural ambassador and scientific exchange student. She would live among your people, learn your ways more intimately, and, if suitable matches present themselves among your people, we would proceed with the medical compatibility testing." The princess stepped closer, her movements graceful despite her alien form. "I understand this seems sudden, Ambassador, but I have been studying human customs for 3 years. I know about your concepts of love, partnership, and family. I am not seeking a mere political arrangement. I hope to find genuine connection with someone who can see beyond the differences in our species." Chen's mind raced through the implications. If this worked, if human Zephyrian reproduction was actually possible, it would revolutionize interspecies relations across the galaxy. But it would also make the princess and any potential human partner the center of unprecedented attention and pressure. "Your Majesty, Princess," Chen said slowly, "I will communicate your proposal to my government immediately. But I must ask, what happens if this experiment fails? If the biological compatibility doesn't work as theorized?" The emperor's expression grew solemn. "Then my daughter will have gained valuable experience, our species will have strengthened their bonds, and we will continue to build our alliance through conventional means." "But Ambassador," his voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried clearly through the vast throne room, "our scientists are rarely wrong about biological matters. They believe not only that reproduction is possible, but that human Zephyrian offspring would possess remarkable hybrid vigor, enhanced intelligence, increased lifespan, resistance to diseases that plague both our species." Princess Lyradin added quietly, "I am willing to risk everything for the possibility of creating something new, something that could bridge the gap between our civilizations. The question is whether humanity is equally willing to embrace such a future." Chen looked around the throne room, taking in the expectant faces of the Zephyrian court. This was so far beyond a simple trade negotiation that he felt like he was in a completely different universe than the one he'd entered. Yet something about the princess's earnest hope and the emperor's paternal concern convinced him that this wasn't some elaborate political manipulation. "I will need to return to Earth immediately to discuss this with my superiors," Chen said formally. "Princess Lyradin, if you are serious about this cultural exchange, would you be willing to undergo the same kind of intensive briefings and preparation that we require of our own diplomatic personnel?" "I have already begun such preparation," she replied. "I have been studying human psychology, sociology, and relationship dynamics for months. I am prepared to adapt to your customs and social structures. I ask only for the chance to prove that love and understanding can transcend species barriers." The emperor stood, his massive form casting shadows across the throne room. "Then it is settled. Ambassador Chen will return to Earth with our formal proposal. Princess Lyradin will follow within 1 lunar cycle, accompanied by our finest cultural advisors and medical specialists. We are about to embark on an experiment that could reshape the galaxy." As Chen prepared to leave, the princess approached him one final time. "Ambassador," she said quietly, "I want you to know that I do not expect love to be given freely. I hope to earn it. I hope to find someone who sees not an alien princess or a political symbol, but simply me. Someone who might be willing to dream of a future we could build together. Chen nodded, struck by the very human quality of her hopes and fears. As he left the palace, he knew that he was carrying back to Earth a proposal that would either unite two species in unprecedented partnership or create complications that neither civilization was prepared to handle. The stakes couldn't be higher, and at the center of it all was a young princess who was willing to risk everything for love, family, and the dream of something entirely new in the galaxy. Dr. Marcus Rivera wiped the sweat from his brow as he reviewed the xenobiology reports for the third time that morning. As the lead researcher at the Geneva Institute for Interspecies Studies, he had seen plenty of unusual cases, but nothing had prepared him for Princess Lyridine's arrival on Earth 6 months ago. The initial medical examinations had confirmed what the Zephyrian scientists suspected. Human Zephyrian reproduction was theoretically possible, though it would require careful genetic compatibility matching. What nobody had expected was how quickly the princess would adapt to human society, or how profoundly she would affect everyone she met. Marcus walked down the corridor toward the princess's residential suite, passing through multiple security checkpoints. The facility had been modified to accommodate her needs, with specialized atmospheric controls and radiation shielding, though she had proven remarkably adaptable to Earth's environment. More remarkably, she had insisted on living as closely to normal human conditions as possible. He found her in the common room, surrounded by a group of graduate students who hung on her every word as she described Zephyrian stellar cartography. She wore a specially designed environmental suit that was much less bulky than the original models, allowing her natural grace to show through. Her translator had been upgraded with colloquial speech patterns, making her sound almost entirely human, except for the musical quality that no technology could quite replicate. "Dr. Rivera!" she called out, her large eyes brightening as she spotted him. "Perfect timing. I was just explaining to Sarah and James how we map quantum fluctuations in hyperspace. They had some fascinating questions about applications to Earth's faster-than-light research." The students looked at Marcus with the kind of starstruck expression he had come to associate with anyone who spent time with the princess. She had that effect on people, an infectious curiosity and genuine interest in others that transcended species barriers. "Your Highness," Marcus said, still somewhat formal despite months of interaction, "I have the latest compatibility results if you'd like to review them." "Of course." She turned to the students with an apologetic gesture. "We'll continue this discussion later. I promise to bring some holographic star charts tomorrow." As they walked toward Marcus's office, the princess's demeanor shifted subtly. The confident, engaging teacher gave way to something more vulnerable and anxious. "The results are positive?" she asked quietly. "Very positive. We've identified 17 potential genetic matches among the volunteer candidates. All of them show high probability for successful reproduction with enhanced hybrid characteristics, just as your scientists predicted." They entered Marcus's office, where detailed genetic profiles covered multiple wall screens. The princess studied them with the intense focus that had made her legendary among the research staff. 17, she murmured. "And they all volunteered knowing the full implications?" Marcus nodded. "Every one of them. We were very clear about the experimental nature, the potential risks, and the fact that any children would be the first of their kind. The response was overwhelming. We actually had to turn away nearly 300 applicants." The princess sat down carefully in the reinforced chair they had installed for her. "Marcus, may I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "Do you think they're volunteering for the right reasons? I've read about human celebrity culture, about how some people seek attention or status. I don't want someone who sees me as an exotic prize or a path to fame." Marcus had been expecting this conversation for months. He sat across from her, choosing his words carefully. Some of the initial applicants clearly had mixed motives, We screened extensively not just for genetic compatibility, but for psychological stability, genuine cross-cultural interest, and what our counselors called authentic emotional availability. And these 17 passed all those tests? They did. But Princess, there's something else we need to discuss. The media attention has been intense, and it's only going to get worse once we announce the next phase. Are you prepared for that level of scrutiny? For every detail of your personal life to become global news? The princess stood and moved to the window overlooking the Institute's gardens. Several earth trees had been planted alongside samples from her home world, creating an unusual but beautiful hybrid landscape. On Zephyr Prime, my condition made me something of a public tragedy, she said softly. The infertile princess, the daughter who couldn't continue the royal line. I've lived with scrutiny and pity my entire life. At least here, the attention comes with hope instead of sadness. Marcus joined her at the window. There's been some pushback, I'm afraid. Religious groups calling it unnatural, political factions worried about alien influence in human genetics, conspiracy theorists claiming everything from invasion plots to divine intervention. I expected that. Change always frightens some people. She turned to face him, and Marcus was struck again by how expressive her alien features had become. Months of interaction with humans had somehow made her more readable, more relatable. But what about the candidates themselves? Have any of them expressed doubts? Actually, quite the opposite. They've been asking when they can meet you in a social context rather than just medical interviews. Several have specifically requested that the selection process include genuine relationship building rather than just genetic matching. For the first time that day, the princess smiled, a uniquely Zephyrian expression that involved a subtle shift in her facial plates and a soft humming sound. That's very human of them, and very encouraging. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Marcus checked his tablet and frowned slightly. What is it? The princess asked. Dr. Sarah Chen from the psychology department wants to meet with both of us. Apparently, there's been an interesting development with one of the candidates. 20 minutes later, they sat in Dr. Chen's office across from a nervous-looking man in his early 30s. David Park was a linguistics professor at Cambridge, one of the 17 genetic matches, and according to his file, someone who had spent the last 5 years studying Zephyrian language and culture. Professor Park has made an unusual request, Dr. Chen began. Rather than waiting for the formal introduction process, he's asked to meet Princess Lyridin in a completely normal social context. No medical supervision, no formal protocols, just a conversation between two people. The princess studied David with obvious curiosity. He was tall for a human, with kind eyes and the slightly rumpled appearance of someone who spent more time thinking than worrying about appearance. When he spoke, his voice carried traces of nervousness, but also genuine warmth. Your Highness, I apologize if this seems presumptuous, but I've been reading about Zephyrian courtship customs, and they emphasize gradual relationship building based on intellectual and emotional compatibility. I thought, maybe we could try something similar. The princess tilted her head in a gesture that had become familiar to the research staff. What did you have in mind, Professor Park? Would you like to get coffee, or tea, or whatever you prefer? Just talk? About anything except genetics and reproduction and the fate of interspecies relations? Dr. Chen looked ready to intervene, but the princess held up a hand. I think that sounds wonderful, but I should warn you, I've developed quite an addiction to human chocolate. Would you mind if we went somewhere that serves dessert as well? David's nervous smile transformed into something genuine and delighted. I know just the place. As Marcus watched them leave together, the alien princess and the human professor, walking side by side through the Institute's corridors, he realized that something fundamental had just shifted. This was no longer just a scientific experiment or a diplomatic arrangement. It was becoming something much more personal and potentially much more powerful. Dr. Chen voiced what they were both thinking. If this works, if they actually fall in love, the implications go far beyond anything we've planned for. Marcus nodded, watching through the window as David held the door open for the princess, a simple gesture of courtesy that somehow seemed monumental. The question is whether the galaxy is ready for what they might create together. Over the following weeks, David and Princess Lyradin were spotted together regularly around Geneva and the surrounding area. Photos of them visiting museums, attending concerts, and sharing meals became a sensation on social media. The images showed something that scientific reports couldn't capture. Two beings from different worlds finding genuine joy in each other's company. The princess bloomed under David's attention in ways that surprised everyone, including herself. His academic background in linguistics meant he could communicate with her in her native language, something that delighted her beyond measure. More importantly, he treated her not as an exotic alien or a princess, but as an intellectually fascinating woman whom he was clearly beginning to adore. Their relationship progressed with remarkable naturalness, despite the artificial circumstances. David introduced her to hiking in the Swiss Alps, where her enhanced physical capabilities allowed her to outpace him easily, though she always stayed close enough to continue their conversations. She shared Zephyrian poetry and music with him, experiences that moved him to tears with their alien beauty. The turning point came during a quiet dinner at a small restaurant overlooking Lake Geneva. The paparazzi had finally been convinced to give them some privacy, and they sat together watching the sunset paint the water in shades of gold and pink. "David," the princess said quietly, "I need to tell you something important. The medical tests show that we're genetically compatible, but there are risks we haven't discussed publicly. Any children we have would be the first of their kind. We don't know how they'll be received by either of our societies. They might face discrimination, isolation, or pressures that no one can prepare them for." David reached across the table and gently touched her hand, a gesture that would have been impossible with her original environmental suits, but felt natural now. "Lyra, every parent worries about what kind of world they're bringing their children into. We'd be facing unique challenges, yes, but we'd also be giving them unique opportunities. Besides," he smiled, "any child of yours would be brilliant enough to handle whatever comes their way." The princess felt something shift inside her, a warmth that had nothing to do with the restaurant's heating system. "You really want this, don't you? Not the political implications or the scientific achievement, but a family. With me. I want a life with you," David said simply. "Whatever form that takes. If children are part of that, wonderful. If not, I'll still consider myself the luckiest man in the galaxy." As they walked back along the lakefront that evening, neither of them noticed the discreet medical monitoring devices tracking their vital signs, or the diplomatic observers cataloging their every interaction. They were simply two beings who had found something precious and rare, love that transcended every barrier the universe had placed between them. The news broke on a Tuesday morning that would forever change the course of galactic history. Princess Lyradin was pregnant, and the child growing within her was healthy, thriving, and exhibited characteristics that astonished scientists from both species. Dr. Marcus Rivera stood before the packed conference room at the Geneva Institute, facing representatives from dozens of news organizations, government agencies, and scientific institutions. Beside him, Princess Lyradin sat with quiet dignity, her hand intertwined with her husband David's. They had married 3 months earlier in a ceremony that blended human and Zephyrian traditions, broadcast live to billions across Earth and the Zephyrian Empire. "The medical scans confirm what we had hoped but hardly dared believe," Marcus announced. The fetus is developing normally and shows enhanced cognitive capacity, improved immune system function, and physiological adaptations that appear to combine the best traits of both species. The child will likely possess increased longevity, resistance to radiation and disease, and cognitive capabilities that exceed current baseline measurements for either humans or Zephyrians. The room erupted in questions, but Marcus held up a hand for silence. More importantly, Princess Leiradin is experiencing none of the complications we had feared. Her body has adapted to the pregnancy with remarkable efficiency. The child appears to be triggering dormant genetic pathways that are allowing normal reproduction to occur. In the back of the room, Ambassador Chen Wei watched the proceedings with a mixture of pride and amazement. 2 years ago, he had walked into an alien throne room expecting to negotiate trade agreements. Now he was witnessing the birth of an entirely new branch of sentient evolution. Princess Leiradin stepped forward to address the gathered media. Her pregnancy had brought subtle changes to her appearance, a softness around her features that somehow made her seem both more alien and more relatable simultaneously. "I want to address the concerns that many have raised about our child's future," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the room despite speaking just above a whisper. "David and I understand that our daughter will face challenges that no child has ever faced before. But we believe that love, understanding, and proper support can overcome any obstacle." "Daughter?" called out a reporter from the back. "You know the gender?" David squeezed his wife's hand and smiled. "We do. And she's active enough in there that I suspect she's going to be quite the handful. The ultrasounds show her responding to both human speech and Zephyrian harmonic communications. She already seems to recognize both our voices." The questions came rapid fire after that. Would the child be raised on Earth or Zephyr Prime? How would citizenship be determined? What about education, social integration, protection from those who might see her as a threat or an opportunity? Princess Leiradin fielded each inquiry with patience and grace. "We plan to split time between both worlds. Our daughter deserves to know both sides of her heritage. As for citizenship, both Earth and the Zephyrian Empire have granted her dual recognition. She will be the first truly galactic citizen." What the media didn't know was that the pregnancy had triggered diplomatic revolution across multiple star systems. 3 other alien civilizations had reached out to Earth requesting similar cultural exchange programs. The success of the Human-Zephyrian Union had demonstrated that interspecies cooperation might be more feasible than anyone had imagined. Emperor Vextar himself had traveled to Earth for the announcement, his massive form somehow managing to project grandfatherly warmth despite his intimidating appearance. He had spent hours in private conversation with David, assessing the human who had married his daughter and who would help raise the heir to 2 civilizations. "Your species continues to surprise us," the Emperor had told David during one of their talks. "When we first proposed this arrangement, I expected political alliance, perhaps friendship. I did not expect my daughter to find such profound happiness, or for myself to gain a son I respect so deeply." The pregnancy progressed smoothly through the first 2 trimesters, though it required constant monitoring from medical teams representing both species. The child's development followed patterns that were sometimes human, sometimes Zephyrian, and sometimes entirely unique. Brain scans showed neural pathway formation that exceeded anything previously recorded. Dr. Sarah Chen, who had been documenting the psychological aspects of the pregnancy, made a startling discovery during the 7th month. The baby is responding to complex mathematical concepts presented through harmonic vibrations. When Leiradin sings certain Zephyrian mathematical theorems, the child's neural activity spikes dramatically. She's learning abstract concepts before she's even born. The birth itself became the most closely monitored medical event in human history. Representatives from 17 different scientific institutions were present, along with specialists from Zephyr Prime and 3 other allied alien civilizations. The delivery room resembled a miniature United Nations, with beings from different worlds working together to ensure the safe arrival of someone who would belong to all of them. Princess Lyradin's labor lasted 14 hours, during which David never left her side. The combination of human and Zephyrian medical techniques ensured minimal complications, though there were tense moments when the baby's unique physiology created situations that no one had encountered before. When their daughter finally emerged, the room fell silent with awe. She was beautiful in a way that transcended species, clearly humanoid, but with the elegant bone structure of her mother's people, skin that shifted between human pink and Zephyrian blue-green depending on her mood, and eyes that held an alertness far beyond normal newborn capability. "Hello, little one," Princess Lyradin whispered, holding her daughter for the first time. The baby's response was immediate and stunning. She began producing a soft, harmonic hum that seemed to combine human cooing with Zephyrian musical communication. David reached out with a trembling finger to touch his daughter's tiny hand. Her grip was remarkably strong, and her eyes tracked his movement with focused intelligence. "She's perfect," he breathed. "Absolutely perfect." They named her Aria, a name that worked in both human and Zephyrian languages and reflected her apparent affinity for harmonic communication. The first photos of baby Aria spread across the galaxy within hours, and the response was overwhelmingly positive. She became an instant symbol of hope for peaceful interspecies cooperation. The months following Aria's birth brought revelations that exceeded every scientific prediction. She developed physically at roughly human pace, but mentally far ahead of either species' normal timeline. By 6 months, she was producing complex harmonic patterns that Zephyrian linguists recognized as primitive but grammatically correct sentences. By her first birthday, she was communicating fluently in both English and Zephyrian, often mixing the languages in ways that created entirely new forms of expression. More remarkably, her presence seemed to have a profound effect on both human and Zephyrian children. Daycare facilities reported that human children exposed to Aria's harmonic communications showed accelerated language development, while young Zephyrians became more emotionally expressive and socially adaptable. Emperor Vextar visited Earth regularly now, spending hours playing with his granddaughter and marveling at her rapid development. During one such visit, as he watched Aria solve a puzzle designed for much older children while humming a complex mathematical sequence, he made an observation that would reshape galactic politics. "She is not just the child of 2 species," he told David and Princess Lyradin as they watched their daughter play. "She is the first member of something entirely new. Within a generation, there could be thousands like her. Children who think beyond the limitations that have divided our civilizations for millennia." Princess Lyradin smiled as she watched her daughter interact with toys that had been gifts from children across the galaxy. Letters and drawings arrived daily from young beings of multiple species, all eager to befriend the famous hybrid child. "The doctors say my reproductive system has completely healed," she told her father and husband quietly. "The pregnancy activated genetic pathways that eliminated the original fertility problems. David and I have been talking about having more children." David nodded enthusiastically. "Aria needs siblings, and frankly, the galaxy needs more bridges between civilizations. We've already had inquiries from 4 other species interested in similar programs." Emperor Vextar's expression grew thoughtful. "The political implications are staggering. A generation of hybrid children could eliminate the tribal thinking that has led to so many conflicts. But are you prepared for the responsibility? Aria and her siblings won't just be your children, they'll be the foundation of interspecies civilization." As if summoned by their conversation, Aria toddles over to her grandfather, her peculiar form of locomotion that somehow combined human walking with Zephyrian balance techniques. She reached up to be picked up, and the massive emperor gently lifted his tiny granddaughter. "Papa Vex," she said clearly, using her special name for him. "Tell me about the singing stars again." As the emperor launched into one of his stories, his harmonic voice blending with Arya's delighted responses, David and Princess Lyradin exchanged a look of profound satisfaction. They had started this journey hoping for love and perhaps a family. What they had created instead was the beginning of a new era. The infertile princess had not only born an heir, she had given birth to the future of galactic civilization. And as they watched their remarkable daughter charm her way into the heart of one of the galaxy's most powerful rulers, they knew that the universe would never be the same. Outside the windows of their Earth home, ships from a dozen different civilizations could be seen in the sky, all carrying diplomats eager to establish their own cultural exchange programs. The age of isolation was ending, and it had begun with a single act of faith between two beings who had dared to love across the vastness of space. Arya looked up from her grandfather's arms and pointed at the ships with excited babbling that combined words from 6 different languages. She was already dreaming of the stars, and someday, the stars would belong to her and others like her. Children of multiple worlds, citizens of the galaxy, bridges between civilizations that had spent too long apart. The experiment had succeeded beyond anyone's wildest dreams, and this was only the beginning.